For 24/7, close to 2 weeks now, we have seen this particular site playing out every single time. The protests by the wrestlers at Jantar Mantar is almost now reaching to a crescendo, wherein on May 21st, if no action is taken against the sidelined WFI chief Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, there will be a big decision taken on May 21st. Today is May 12th. 9 days later, and even before, almost close to a week, ever since the FIRs were filed against Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, no action has been taken as of this point. Now, this entire protest is very, very sad. It could very well have been avoided also. This situation wherein we are seeing our star wrestlers come out onto the streets in Jantar Mantar and protest, all this would not Now, the wrestlers' protest in this situation has exposed a deep, deep rot that exists within the sporting federations. And because of this, the National Human Rights Commission has also stepped in now. The NHRC has issued notices to BCCI and to 16 sporting federations for the violation of a law. What is that law? In this, I am going to tell you why the BCCI, why all the other sporting organizations have been given a big notice by the National Human Rights Commission itself. It is in the backdrop of this protest. What is it? There is no ICC within is the Internal Complaints Committee. The Internal Complaints Committee has to be set up in POSH Act or the Prevention of Sexual Harassment for Women in Workplace Act. Remember, in 2013, this legislation had come about and the POSH Act was implemented. Because, why did this act have to come in? Women's participation in sports has increased. Now, recently the Indian Express did a big expose, a big investigation, and the results that they found out was staggering. It exposed the rot which is so deep in each and every sporting federation that there is no ICC in majority of the sporting federations in India. The Indian Express investigation revealed 16 out of the 30 national federations, they do not have an ICC committee. ICC is very important because it is the key element to determine the safety of the women in workplace. If you think 14 out of the 30 federations have got ICC committees, you are grossly mistaken. Because the ICC makeup and the structure that is in place, 14 out of the 30, the remaining 14 out of the 30 do not even fulfill that criteria as well. What are we doing for women's safety in sporting federations? What is happening? The ground reality is that the protests that the wrestlers are doing, it has exposed this rot. And because of that, sporting federations in India cannot escape. Because they are guilty of one basic cell that is mandatory under the government law of 2013. They have not even got that. So that is the main reason the likes of the BCCI, the likes of the WFI, the likes of the Judo Federation, the likes of Archery Association of India, Badminton Association of India, everybody has gotten notices from the NHRC. And that is a very tragic thing indeed. Now, you'll all be wanting to ask, what is the Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013? The Act protects women against male sexual harassment at work. It came about in 2013. POSH is mandatory under each federation. Now, if POSH mandates an internal complaints committee, what is it? Well, the makeup of the committee has to be in every sporting organization, minimum of 4 members. That is the key requirement in the ICC. half of them have to be women. So 2 have to be out of women. Out of that, 1 from an NGO or an association that works for women's empowerment or a lawyer. Basically, this is the criteria that has to be there. So an ICC has to be set up with 4 members, half of them, which is 2 or more, can be women. 1 of that has to be from an external agency, say from a women's organization or a lawyer. But this is where things become very sad, because none of the organizations have fulfilled this criteria. That is the major problem. When MC Maricom's oversight committee was conducting the investigations into the allegations of sexual harassment in the WFI, they had themselves concluded in the investigation that this particular ICC mechanism was absent in the WFI. And because of this, taking into account the Indian Express investigation, the NHRC has issued notices to sports bodies. Notices were also issued to the BCCI, Sports Authority of India and the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. 5 federations do not have an ICC, 4 don't have the stipulated members, and 6 lacked mandatory external members. Comment upon it. This is where the major problem is. How can women athletes function? How can they perform if they are feeling unsafe in their own federations? The mandatory law states, according to POSH, that you have to set up an ICC committee within the sporting federations. But if there is no redressal committee, where can they go? And let us now look at the wrestlers' protest in a broader spectrum. You would remember that majority of the wrestlers protested against the sexual harassment because 1 or 2 of them were minors. And that is why Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, the FIRs have been registered even under POCSO. This whole protest would not even have been required if the WFI had set up an ICC or an internal complaints committee. But that is not there. The police inaction, combined with all the necessary regulations that are there, which have been totally dismantled, has ensured that the wrestlers have to come to the streets in Jantar Mantar. Because every sporting organization, right from the BCCI all the way to the major sporting federations in India, and remember, all of them send these athletes to the Asiad, to the Commonwealth, to the Olympics. All these federations are involved, and they are guilty of not implementing this one basic requirement which was mandated in 2013. So whose fault is it really? Are the sporting federations just too lax? Lack of government control? Lack of vigilance? All these factors? That is probably the reason why these protests by sports persons, that too in Olympic preparation year, is galling. One has to understand that if you had kept the basic mechanisms in place, there would have been no such issue, and the matter could have been resolved in such a way that the wrestlers could have actually been preparing for the World Championships or for the Asian Games or for the Olympics. But here, because of a lack of a system in place, the wrestlers have to take this step. And this is where every sporting federation is guilty of it, and that is the reason why strict action has to be taken now. Because if the sporting federations do not clean their act up, something big is going to happen in the future. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this live. We'll be back with more updates on sports today. Tap that bell icon so you know when we go live, and don't forget we are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you.